Some people blame everything on demons. Everything bad is blamed on a demon, especially Abrahamic demons, I feel like the demons from the Bible. Welcome, stranger, to Madame Strangeways, where I, Madame Strangeways, narrate your true strange stories of the unexplained. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or some secret third thing, stick around after the story where I will share my strange thoughts and strange research about said strange story. And along the way, I will drag you down a slew of strange rabbit holes, kicking and screaming, if needs must. Before we get to the true strange story, though, the strangest of shout-outs to my Patreon patrons. TJ Hodder of the Tapes of Trepidation podcast, Gmanmusic, Ted, Keith, and Tori. Thank you so much to my feral fiendish 5 for supporting the show. Hear your name at the beginning of every episode, get a free sticker, and get bonus Madame Strange Notes episodes just for joining the Patreon today at patreon.com/Madame Strangeways. Oh, thunderbolt and lightning. Very, very frightening. Sounds like it's about to rain hellcats and hellhounds out there. So you know what that means. Settle in for a true strange story here with Madame Strangeways. Mysterious Growling at the Airbnb by Anonymous. I've had several unexplained experiences, all with witnesses, but this experience scared me the most. I was renting an Airbnb with my husband. It's literally a one-room building, like a mother-in-law suite on a solid concrete slab foundation. The first night, we hear a long, scary growl from right outside the window next to our bed. We looked out all the windows, and eventually my husband went outside and saw nothing. So we forgot about it. The next night, we were both sitting in the quiet room reading, just straight chilling. From directly under the bed comes the deepest, longest, most vicious growl I've ever heard. I've worked with dogs professionally for years. This was no dog. We both freak the fuck out and flip the mattress. Nothing. We look around the whole place, but it's just a tiny room, so there's no place for anything to hide. The next day, I go and search outside the building thoroughly. The foundation is solid concrete. Nothing could get under the building. There's no attic space, no prints. I asked the property owner if there were any wild animals in the area capable of growling like that, or if anyone else had reported hearing something similar. She said no, and suggested that it was feral cats. This was not a cat. Sometimes this memory will randomly pop in my head, and I still get terrified. Anonymous, thank you so much for sharing your terrifying experience here on the show. I don't think that that is an amenity that you should have to pay for at an Airbnb. In fact, I think they owe you a discount, at least a partial one. You didn't know that you had a roommate, an invisible, spectral, growling creature from the depths, from hell, possibly, roommate. Yeah, you didn't sign up for that. That's not fair. So how do we get you reimbursed? What do we need to do? Do we need to email Airbnb? Do we need to email the person? What do we do? But seriously, no, I'm sorry that happened to you. That sounds absolutely horrifying. And then to have to the first night it happens, very, very scary. Okay, it's scary. And then the next, you just think, it's just, I don't know what it was. Oh, well, I guess we're fine. And then it happens again, and it's inside the room instead of just being outside. I don't like it. On the other hand, and this is what I always say when there's more than one witness to these experiences, at least you have that. At least you know your husband also heard it. And you're not imagining things, which is fine, as you know. Y'all know, hello. Are you new to the show? Then you don't know. If you are not new to the show, welcome back. Happy to have you. I spend an awful lot of time discussing how common hallucinations are. It is kind of a relief to know, Anon, that you weren't hallucinating, that someone else experienced it with you. Although you did start the story saying that you have several experiences and they all have witnesses. So lucky you. I mean, not lucky in the terms of how scary those experiences probably were, because that does suck. And I'm sorry you've experienced those, unless you like it, in which case, okay. But lucky because so many people that share their strange, unexplained stories with me don't have someone else to corroborate the story. So lucky in that sense. Anyway, I want to share, Anon did post a couple update, or at least answered some questions in the comments to this thread. So I'm going to read them right here just to give you some context. And then after I do that, we will jump into the mundane / skeptical / naturalistic explanation possibilities versus the paranormal theories. And as I've discovered in my research, Anon and her husband are far from the only people who have heard growling coming from thin air. Okay, but first, here's some comments that give a little bit more color to the story. Similar to a big dog, kind of, or maybe a large wild cat. This is, by the way, this is in regards to what did the growling sound like? Similar to a big dog, kind of, or maybe a large wild cat. Like imagine a very large-chested predator type animal. It was a much deeper pitch than any big dog breed I've ever heard, not seen. You don't see it anyway. More visceral and wild sounding too. No barking, just a single growl that lasted maybe 5 to 6 seconds. From the floor to the top of the mattress was maybe 3.5 feet, and it was right under the bed. I would have thought it was a cougar, but they're not in that area, and that wouldn't explain where the sound came from. Then also, somebody asked another question. I didn't write what it was, but I have the answer here. I could check out if anything strange happened there, but whatever the fuck we heard was not / had never been human. It even felt like being stalked like a predator after I thought about it. Like the first night before we heard the growl from outside the window, I was out in the yard, just kind of enjoying the stars and the breeze. My husband said, "Something feels sketchy. Let's go in." So we did. It feels like being watched for 3 days without knowing it. Ugh. Blech. I don't like it. And that's not what you're paying for when you're on vacation. Presumably you were on vacation. And that's not a vacation. You know, I'm sure, yes, I guarantee you there is types of vacations where you want to be scared. This is not one of those times. Maybe some marketing needs to go on. They would attract a lot of people. Anyway, okay, we're going to move on. Okay, we're going to start with the naturalistic or, skeptical theories, but really quickly, because I don't think I've really talked about this recently in the last few episodes. So if you're new to the show, welcome. But also, I would like to explain why I like to present the mundane or skeptical, etc., explanations alongside the paranormal and folkloric ones. So a big reason that I started doing the podcast was to help people who hear really scary and purportedly true stories of the unexplained and then become terrified and anxious because they think that those stories are going to happen to them. And I don't mean in a fun way like, oh, let's watch a scary story in the dark. Hee hee, it'll be fun kind of way. I mean an obsessively worrying and being genuinely afraid of invisible entities stalking you and ruining your life kind of way. Because I kind of experienced that a lot in my youth. So I think that kind of a lot of normal people, well, if you're listening to this, I can't say that you're normal, but a lot of borderline normal and or weird people who don't have crippling anxiety about the paranormal don't really realize that some of us have undiagnosed or diagnosed and untreated OCD or anxiety, complex PTSD, etc., etc. Those things can cause us to latch onto things that either manifest as like intrusive thoughts or obsessive worrying, like catastrophizing is the word I'm looking for. which is basically where your brain leaps to the worst possible conclusion, convincing you that not only is the worst scenario going to happen, but that you are going to be permanently impacted by it forever for the rest of your life, and you'll never be the same, and life as you know it will be filled with suffering and ghosts and demons, and it's not fun. So obviously, I hate that. And I want to present alternative theories so that those of us who are prone to being very afraid, very scared, can actually see that there are possibilities besides just the worst ones. I want to prove to people that you can feel afraid and not be in danger. So just to be clear, when I suggest these mundane explanations or theories, I'm never questioning or challenging the experiencer's experience. I'm genuinely just introducing alternative explanations that may or may not, usually not, if I'm being honest, explain an otherwise very spooky event. But also I think it's kind of fun too. Okay, here we go, starting with mundane and skeptical. First of all, growling out of nowhere that you can't find the source for. Here's my pet theory. Did you know that cobras growl like the snake? Great. That's great. No, I didn't know either until I was doing research for this episode. Cobras can growl. Now, look, do I think that there's cobras in the area that this story happened, which, by the way, is Gulf Shores, Alabama? Do I think cobras are native to Alabama? No. But still, listen to this. Listen, I have a clip. Roll the clip. Roll the beautiful growling cobra footage. Listen to this cobra growling. Isn't that crazy? Okay, look, I know the description, big-chested, large, big animal, all right, which is not a cobra. However, that's still scary. And also, it could hide somewhere, presumably, in a small room because it's small. Now, you would also probably hear it hissing and slithering around. I don't know. So this is probably not it, but I thought, wow, what a fun fact. Cobras growl. Okay, but listen to this. From Wikipedia. While the hisses of most snakes are of a broad frequency span ranging from roughly 3,000 to 13,000 hertz with a dominant frequency near 7,500 hertz. It's a Jeopardy question for you. King cobra growls consist solely of frequencies below 2,500 hertz, with a dominant frequency near 600 hertz, a much lower pitched frequency closer to that of a human voice. Comparative anatomical morphometric analysis, I am a scientist now because I said those words in that order, has led to discovery of tracheal diverticula, now I'm a super scientist, that function as low-frequency resonating chambers in king cobra and its prey, the rat snake, both of which can make similar growls. Now, I couldn't find a rat snake growl, but it's fine. This is fine. We don't need to get a Madame Reptile ways here. We're going to stay focused. Okay, there's one thought, one way that could possibly explain hearing growling in a small room. A cobra. We're starting off strong. All right, number 2, second theory, Bluetooth speaker, ? Did the host or a previous guest plant a speaker in the room specifically to prank them? I don't know. Maybe. Stranger things have happened. Speakers can be really small these days. I mean, we live in the future. So was there a speaker hidden, underneath the bed frame? Possibly. And then is there a camera in there so that they can watch? Maybe. Didn't do a sweep for cameras. They did a sweep for things that can growl, that are the size of a large, like bobcat. Are bobcats big? A big cat. A giant, something bigger than a big dog. A wolf? Wolves are bigger than dogs. Anyway, they were doing a sweep for big creatures or demons. They weren't doing a sweep for, you see what I mean? They're not doing a sweep for Bluetooth speakers or for cameras. Now, when Anon asked the Airbnb host if they've had any other guests experience something like this weird, mysterious growling, obviously the host said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, that sounds like something you would say to cover your tracks because you're pranking people. Ugh, we'll just never know. All right, clearly, the skeptics are going to win on this one because this is some serious science that we're talking about. But no, seriously, now that I've lulled you into thinking that I only have silly skeptical theories, I have discovered a gold mine. Now, hold until I need to make my case, please. Okay. Just give me a moment. Okay, so the Airbnb was in Gulf Shores, Alabama, right? Okay, we've established that. So, I immediately had to research the area to see, are other people experiencing strange growling local to this area? Well, I found stuff on Facebook, which is not normally something, that's not somewhere that I normally find stuff for the show. So that's been interesting. Here we go. We've got some posts. This one is in late 2025, and then I've got another one from also late 2025, kind of around the same time. So get this. This person says, Susan. Susan says, we'll just call her Susan. I live in Gulf Shores, but I keep hearing a big rumble off and on, and I know it's not jets. A rumble? It's kind of like a growl, isn't it? It seems to be out towards the ocean. Okay. And it can't be waves. Not hearing it this far. What? Okay. What could it be? Does anyone else hear it? It has to go on all the time. I think there's some words in here that weren't supposed to be there. Anyway, she's saying, is anyone else hearing this? It happens all the time. So here's the comments. Here's the responses. The Blue Angels flew over my house in formation at 2 p.m. today, right near Big Lagoon State Park. Blue Angels? I said, what are those? And I Googled it. And then apparently I didn't put that information that I Googled into my notes. So hold on a second. Okay, Google. What are the Blue Angels?
According to Wikipedia, the Blue Angels, formerly named the U.S. Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron, is a United States Navy flight demonstration squadron. Okay. Formed in 1946, the unit is the second oldest formal aerobatic team in the world. All right.
That's fine. It's enough propaganda. It's basically like acrobatics, but with jets is basically what it is. And they're really loud. Okay, so apparently the Blue Angels do all kinds of stuff. Where are my notes on the Blue Angels? I did a ton of research on the Blue Angels and it's missing. Did I delete it? Did a ghost delete it? Did a ghost steal it? Did I dream it? I don't know. Anyway, we're not going to go down the Blue Angel rabbit hole, but listen, they're around that area. And apparently they do a lot of stuff and it's really loud. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on that thread alone, 6 people on that thread alone saying it's Blue Angels, Blue Angels, Blue Angels. And then one person, and this is my kind of person, says very possibly and most likely UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Of course, it's a UFO, which, if you're not with it, UFOs are UAPs now. Mm-hmm. And they go on to say, finally, the government is admitting this. It's out in the Gulf in the Pacific at Catalina Island. Residents there describe the same sounds. It is life coming up from under the water. Look up Ross Coldheart to learn more. It's real, not your imagination. And then they use like a 100 emoji, which I don't know why they didn't use like an alien head emoji or like a UFO emoji. Emoji. Anyway, missed opportunity. And not only that, come to find the Air Force and the Navy both do routine ordnance testing in the Gulf of Mexico. And by ordnance, I mean weapons, or specifically ammunition, like bombs. They're just dropping bombs, I guess, in the ocean because it doesn't bother anyone. I feel like it bothers someone, like a fish or several fish, plural fish. And look, I know I said this is more of a boom than a growl, a rumble than a growl. But I've never heard the sound of bombs or the Blue Angels. So I can't rule either of those things out. Now, Anon can rule those things out and say, no, it definitely wasn't that. It was in the room. Totally fair, totally valid. This is just something that I think a skeptic would say. So there it is. Anyway, pretend that there's a whole bunch of research here about how highly unreliable our sense of hearing is and how easily our sense of hearing can be tricked. And in fact, it's like the most trickable sense that we have, especially when we're primed. Like, okay, the trick is you will hear what I tell you you're going to hear. And it's the same audio being replayed. I'm going to tell you what you hear. You're going to hear what I'm telling you. And it's crazy. It's so much fun. If you've already done this exercise before, whatever, hang out, have a good time. Let's do it again. If you haven't heard it, this is really fun. Okay, so listen. This is the exact same audio, I swear. First, you're going to hear the words green needle. Now, same audio. You're going to hear Brainstorm. Seriously, go look it up on YouTube or TikTok or something. You can trick your brain into hearing whichever one you want it to. It's absolutely crazy. And I stop to listen to it every time it comes across my feed. But obviously, I don't mean that something this simple could explain how two people heard a terrifying growling sound not once but twice on 2 separate days. All I am saying, and all I will continue to say until the day that I die, and probably past then if I can figure out how to haunt all of you. So figure that out. Get some Ouija boards. Our brains are deeply fallible and are actually really terrible at telling us the objective truth of what our senses are actually picking up. And okay, wait, I just found something else. I didn't mean for this part to be so long. I just found something else, so this is great. The ventriloquism effect. So you've probably got a good idea of what it is from the name alone, but from the American Psychological Association, the ventriloquism effect is a tendency for sounds to appear to emanate from plausible visual objects regardless of the actual source of the sound. For example, the voices of actors in a movie are localized to the images on the screen rather than to the speakers that produce the actual sound in the theater. So I remember in my research from the Smurl family haunting episode regarding how Milbourne Christopher, a famous illusionist, was debunking the alleged poltergeist case that actually the movie Poltergeist was based on. Anyway, for part of it, he stood with his back to a wall and with a hand behind his back gave a knock on that wall. Then he immediately turned his head to look down the hallway as if that was where the noise had come from. Everyone involved immediately looked in the direction he did, and they all assumed that the sound had come from down the hallway, not the wall where he had clearly knocked. And that's due to, I've now learned, the ventriloquism effect. So in a small room, you get where I'm going with this, right? In a small room with not very much in it, I think that it's fair that the bed, being so large, is what grabbed Anon's attention since it was most visually dominant in the room, just like the movie screen of the theater, or like the windows, depending on where you were looking at the time that the sound happened. If you were facing the window versus facing the bed, whichever one took up the most part of your vision. We'll go with that. Whichever one, that's where it's going to sound like it came from. You see what I'm saying? Because of the ventriloquism effect. But here's the thing. That does not explain what was the growl. Where did the growl come from? Was it a king cobra with a microphone? Like with what are they called? The bullhorn? We'll never know. The thing is, here's what I'll tell you. A cobra with a bullhorn is not Occam's razor. That's not how that works. So honestly, I don't know that any of these theories properly account for the fact that Anon and their partner heard something. And also, it doesn't make it any less terrifying of an experience. Although I do find some comfort in the fact that it doesn't seem like there's actually invisible monsters underneath every bed. So there's that silver lining. Now we are on to the paranormal. Paranormal theories, paranormal explanations, paranormal thoughts. I want to tell you what I feel very strongly that this growling sound is not, which is anything demonic. Now, again, if you know me, you know how I feel about demons. You know how I feel about demon mongering, about people saying that demons are around and they're scaring you and they're there to torture you and ruin your life. Some people blame everything on demons. Everything bad is blamed on a demon, especially Abrahamic demons, I feel like the demons from the Bible. And I'm not down with it. I don't like it. I'm not going to get into another rant. I've done those on previous episodes, but I just really don't think, this is just my take, I don't think anything paranormal can really hurt you directly. And even though it might feel like your life is in danger, and of course, always trust your gut, no matter what, even though you can feel like your life is in danger and you can feel afraid, but A, it's probably not a demon, and B, just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you're in danger. Yep, that's how it works. All right, here we go. Moving on. I will never suggest that it's a demon. If I suggest that something is a demon, it's got to be a joke. If it's not a joke, I've been body snatched. So email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com, if you ever hear me take something seriously and treat it like a demon. Although if I'm body snatched, I don't know how helpful an email will be, but still, it would be nice to hear from you. All right, so I wanted to get an idea of how common this growling phenomenon is. There are a scary amount of stories, actually. A scary amount of scary stories just like this one of people hearing a disembodied growling sound in the same room as them. Y'all, I think we're onto something here. This is like freaking me out. Here's just a handful. There was a loud and deep growling noise, like from a large and very angry dog, but even louder and deeper. That's almost exactly what Anon said. As we were walking on this is a different one. As we were walking on a path in the field, we both all of a sudden heard a growl. And the only thing I can compare the growl to is a tiger. That's crazy because Anon said a big cat, like a very large cat. Here's another one. A friend said that it was as if somebody took a wolf growl and distorted it on a computer. Crazy. Also, my roommate and I were both home studying in our separate rooms, and when I heard a very mean growl outside my window, I pulled him into my room and we stood there quietly and we heard it again. Where are these growlings come from? Where does this growl? Where are these growls coming from? Not demons. I can tell you that. I do know that. I feel very strongly that it's not demons. So one of the comments said, here we go. As a Muslim, everything you've mentioned brings me to the conclusion that it was a jinn. The reason why they do this might be because, according to my religion, they age a lot, something like 10 times more than the average human age. So they've probably been in the house before you. So they were there to try to scare you off as they think that they own the place. And this person felt very confident. They feel very, very confident that it's a jinn. Now, this is where you might expect me to take you down a rabbit hole about jinn. And I would love to go down that rabbit hole, but I need to do an episode about jinn. So I will be going down a rabbit hole and I will be dragging you with me, kicking and screaming if needs must. But for right now, I'm going to leave it there. Shocking, I know. But if you're interested, when do you want to hear? Do you want to hear it now? Email me. Email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Let me know. Are you interested in learning more about jinn and hearing? Actually, hold on, pause. Do you have an encounter with a jinn? Are you a jinn? Are you listening right now? Are you a jinn? Email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. We'll have you on the show. Now, I'm not a paranormal investigator, but I bet you that, in fact, I know, but I'm just saying, paranormal investigators encounter growling sounds when they're doing EVP a lot, from the ones I've seen online anyway. But that's EVPs. That's like you're putting, you use, what is it? Come on. You use a little recording device and you can't hear it. Humans can't hear it. But when you listen back to the recording, then you can actually pick up on this growl, right? So like if most people are not hearing the growl and this was so loud and these people are multiple people are experiencing strange growling sounds out of nowhere. What is it? I think some people would probably suggest a poltergeist because that is something that you do see with poltergeist cases. However, generally, at least the things that I was reading, that growling noise is basically the only thing that happens. And poltergeists really like attention. So a poltergeist isn't going to just growl and be done with it or growl, 2 nights in a row and then just be like, that was fun. No, poltergeists are jerks. They're divas. They want all of the attention all the time. So it doesn't really sound like a poltergeist to me. Is it just a restless spirit? Perhaps a restless spirit that has saved up all of their energy and is just able in that moment to tap in to the electromagnetic something. And it comes across as this deep reverberating growl. Maybe they don't even mean it. Maybe they're not even mad. Maybe that's just kind of how it works. It's like the German language kind of just sounds like they're mad all the time, or like Russian. They sound mad all the time, even when they're not mad. I do think that they are mad a lot, but you see what I'm saying? Maybe that's a ghost language. We just haven't parsed it. We just don't have the Rosetta Stone for the ghost language, the Ghostetta Stone. I feel like that's as good as I'm going to get on that. I think that's the best one I'm going to be able to manage. Let me know. Do you have a better name for the Rosetta Stone, for the strange paranormal Rosetta Stone? Email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. All right. And finally, though this next instance of disembodied growling is definitely, probably, maybe unrelated, almost definitely, probably unrelated, you'll soon see how, just like the greasy witches in the Appalachian Trail Mystery episode, which if you haven't listened to, go back and listen, I couldn't not share the story. What was I supposed to do? Not share it? That's not happening. Here we go. This is from hauntedmontreal.com about the Red Path Museum in Montreal, hauntedmontreal.com. The disembodied growling noises seemed to emanate from a taxidermied silverback gorilla. Acquired through McGill's Congo expedition in the 1930s, the gorilla was put on display and affectionately named George by staff members. George was extremely popular and drew many visitors to the Red Path Museum. The The gorilla even appeared in newspapers such as the Montreal Star, the Montreal Herald, and McGill Daily, all of which described the massive beast as a very manly leader in the primate world, which is weird. That's a weird thing to say. That's a weird thing for a newspaper to say. Unfortunately, during the mid-1950s, a group of deranged McGill students decided to play a very nasty prank on the silverback gorilla. So, by the way, this is taxidermied. He's not alive. Several students wearing lab coats entered the museum and asked the museum director if they could borrow the gorilla. They explained that a professor had made the request for academic purposes. The museum director acquiesced, and the students removed George from the museum. The following morning, a professor discovered the silverback gorilla perched atop McGill's famous Three Bears fountain. That's B-A-R-E-S, not like the Three Little Bears. I think it's three naked women, and they all have their back to each other, and they're like holding up a shell or something above them. Anyway, to make matters worse, the pranksters had castrated poor George and removed his proud genitalia. That's verbatim. That's verbatim. That's hauntedmontreal.com's words, not mine. His proud genitalia was removed. Soon after officials returned George to his proper place in the Redpath Museum, reports of his disembodied growling began to surface. Sometimes, to this very day, children visiting the museum get frightened when they hear a sudden growl emanating from the castrated silverback gorilla. Who can blame him? Who could blame poor George? That's terrible. So, I guess it's possible. It's possible that George, the castrated silverback gorilla, made his way from Montreal down south to Gulf Shores, Alabama, to Anon's Airbnb. It's not impossible. You have to admit that it's not impossible. He's like outside the window. I guess he's not under the bed, but that's the ventriloquism effect. Anyway, as you can see, disembodied growling noises are way more common than I realized, and I don't want to be next. I don't know about you guys. I don't want to hear any disembodied growling, although I guess it would be better than growling in the house because, oh no, there's a wild animal in my house and it's growling at me. Maybe I do. I would prefer, okay, I'll say that. I would prefer disembodied over embodied growling. But what about you? Have you ever heard disembodied growling? Have you ever heard growling that came from the thin air and you couldn't figure out where it came from? I want to hear about it, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. And actually, if you've got any kind of unexplained story, any kind of strange story that you want to share with me that you would like to hear read on the show, I'm going to need you to email that to me immediately right now. Do you know where? Have you caught on? madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Do it right now. Right this moment. I'm waiting. Like now. Right now. Okay, thanks. Okay, bye. Remember that you can feel afraid and not be in danger. You're safe here with me. Probably. Thank you for joining me for more true, strange stories of the unexplained. I'm running a one-madam show here, so please do me a strange solid and follow the podcast, leave me a rating on Apple or Spotify, and maybe even join the Patreon at patreon.com/MadameStrangeways for bonus content. Madame Strangeways is produced and narrated by me, Madame Strangeways. Theme music is by Marina Ryan at marinamakes.co. Cover art is by Andrea Giselle Roldan at Cult of Teddy on Instagram. Every strange story is shared with the permission of the author. You can submit your own true strange story to madamestrangeways@gmail.com. See you soon, she said ominously. So the Airbnb, like I said, was in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Did I say Mississippi? Where the fuck is Gulf Shores? Hold on.